Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us on this Friday afternoon on Gulfstream Today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney, and we've got 11 races on tap, and we've got a big weekend on tap as well with 3 graded stakes and 1 grade 1.
Yes, it should be a very exciting day tomorrow. We'll see, of course, Sandiva try to make it 2 in a row as she'll try the Swanee River tomorrow. See Tommy Macho and Zulu out for Todd Fletcher in the Hardacre Mile as well. And we'll also have the Gulfstream Park Turf Handicap. So should really be a fun day and lots of fun stuff going on every weekend here at Gulfstream.
Yeah, we've had action-packed weekends for the past month, and I don't think it's going to lighten up anytime soon as well. But we do have some guarantees that we wanted to mention for tomorrow afternoon. We have guarantees in the late pick 4. That is a $300,000 guarantee. In the 20-cent Rainbow 6, that is a $200,000 guarantee. And in the late pick 5, a $250,000 guarantee there. That will take place tomorrow. And the late pick 4 and obviously late pick 6, we do have those stakes races all in the mix there, as I believe they are 9, 10, and 11 are graded stakes. So a lot to look forward to, but a lot to look forward to today because I am up for a Beat the Expert. And it wasn't an easy card today. Kind of the earlier races, there are a lot of favorites, and we'll talk about it, but it's going to be a fun day.
It should be, and I wish you luck. I had some tough beats last week. I didn't do so well at Beat the Expert last week, but as you said, it is a tough card, but it looks like you look pretty ready there in that picture.
I don't know. Ron and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't look very intimidating. I look too friendly, so maybe we'll have to shoot that picture again. But go ahead and go online at facebook.com/GulfstreamPark and use that hashtag #BeatTheExpert. This thing has been growing in popularity. People are really excited about it. You and I were joking a couple weeks ago. We didn't do it on the Friday before Pegasus World Cup. We had a couple people come up to the set and said, I missed it. Yeah. When's it coming back? So it's back and I'm up. So best of luck to all of the contestants here today. You do, if you go in there and you win, you have a chance to win one of those super cool polos.
It is a lot of fun, and you have until first post to get your picks in, so just under 70 minutes, 68 minutes to be exact.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at today's card and wanted to show you some of our special wagers today, our wagering menu. We start things off in race 1 with that rolling super high 5, of course. That super high 5 takes place with 7 or more betting interests in every race. Race 1 also kicks off that 50-cent early pick 5. Acacia will have a ticket for that. As we move along throughout the card, race 6 kicks off the 20-cent Rainbow 6. We have a carryover $23,000 in that. And race 7 starts the 50-cent late pick 5 as well. So interested to see your take on those tickets. I will take a stab at the Rainbow 6, but first, of course, as usual, we started off with the early pick 5.
All right, we'll give you a look at my ticket. Wasn't able to single today. I thought there were a couple logical horses in each race and trying to keep it affordable. So using 3 to start it off, I'll go 2 deep in the next with Dubai Bob and Awesome My Way. 2 deep in the third as well. And I did actually consider singling High Dandy, as I don't really trust either of the favorites, and that's going to be my top pick in there, but I didn't think it was a race I was confident enough to single in. So 2 deep in there, 2 in the fourth, and then spreading in the 5th race using $48.
I like it. $48, nice affordable ticket, and build that bankroll so you can go into the Rainbow 6 and the late pick 5 as well. Now, we started off on the main track of the one-turn mile for this open $16,000 event, and we wanted to go back and show you a spotlight replay of the number 1 Dancing in the Heat. Last time out, during this time, trained by Antonio Sano.
Yes, this was the last race, and you see got bumped a little bit at the start and was wide heading into the turn as well as we get out there. So kind of got pushed backwards, was back behind the rest of the field, and then was just kind of dueling with Chisel, the top 2, ahead of the rest of the field. And I thought it was a very game performance. Now, Dancing in the Heat did end up getting beaten by half a length by Chiseled, and these are 2 horses that are consistent at this level. And as you can see, those 2 were much the best that day. Now, has been claimed by Safi Joseph Jr. Interesting to note that Javier Castellano does stay aboard, even with the claim. I think that's good to note. And I didn't show the stat, but for what it's worth, Safi, first off the claim on the dirt, is 21% win and 56% in the money. Does a very good job first off the claim.
He does, and we've seen him really kind of claiming horses off of George Navarro, off of Antonio Sano, and just having a lot of success with his kind of lower level dirt claimers. And Javier Castellano, he stays aboard, but he usually rides for Safi Joseph Jr., so it does make sense there. But Ravello's Boy, I took a shot with this horse just because I think he's in really, really good form right now. And Angel Quiroz, this is the trainer. We ran a stat for him last time out, first off the claim, because I thought that he might go off at a bigger price than you know what he was going off under when Safi Joseph Jr. was handling him, or even George Navarro. But second off the claim with his dirt horses at this mid-level, he's still 20%, and it's still a positive ROI. So I wouldn't just give up on this horse. I know it's a step up in class, but is it really? I think his numbers are really equivalent to the rest of the field.
Definitely, if you look at his Beyer speed figures, and just last time out, he's had 4 wins in a row, and last time he did receive an 80 Beyer speed figure, so he is stepping up from that open 6250 company. But if you remember, I did use him in the pick 5. I don't think that he's one that you can totally toss, as he just really has been in such good form lately. He's definitely one to respect. On the opposite side, a horse that's kind of seemed to be refinding his form, if you will, is Morgan's Harbor. He's still a bit of a head scratcher for me, as he took such a big drop and won by open lengths 2 starts back. Last time out, he stepped up a little bit to starter optional claiming. Now he's back in the open claiming company.
And he is a sneaky good horse, I think, because you know he won by open lengths against 6250 non-winners of 3 company. This is an open condition, but I think he's much better than what it kind of shows on paper. He got off to a really bad start when he was going against 12,500 claiming company. He proved his credibility against foes in his next race, and I thought a good race last time out, considering the wide trip and kind of the slow pace that was set in front of him. So maybe another one, and that's definitely the horse that you're hoping for to start the early pick 5 to make it at least a little bit more valuable.
Absolutely.
As the other 2 horses are going to be a short price favorite. As we get to the second race on the card, non-winners of 3 lifetime for 16,000, 5 furlongs onto the turf, and we wanted to go back to the 11th of January and show the replay of Awesome My Way.
He took kind of a right turn at the break, as you'll see, the number 8 that day. Had to steady sharply there, as he almost kind of lost his footing a little bit. So right off the bat, off to a little bit of an uncomfortable start. But he comes in, saving ground along the rail there in that race, and he comes in between with horses rallying on his outside as well, as he's kind of drifting a bit, trying to get him to change leads. And as he's coming down the stretch, I thought that he got out to the front, and then he did have, again, those horses coming on his outside, kind of horses coming on either side of him, but he kept on strongly still. And I think it was a sneaky good race in there. So he's beaten by just half a length in there. I put him on top, and I see that you did as well.
I did too, because, you know, sometimes you never want to get off to that kind of start when you're going 5 furlongs on the turf. But on top of that, he was bumped hard enough to make Paco Lopez kind of stand up in the saddle and check this horse back off the pace. And I think it was more important for a horse like Awesome My Way, because he is a speed type of horse. You could see him kind of on the wrong lead coming down the stretch, just not looking very comfortable, because he's not a closing sprinter. He's better on the lead. So that was more impactful because of the bad start. So that's why I did go to him. But the 2 Dubai Bob, this is kind of a cool story. This horse was laid up since June of 2013. He came back in November of 2016. He won that. He won again, and he might win once again for Angel Rodriguez. We'll show you a stat here for Dubai Bob and the connections. It is a small stat here, but 25% and a positive ROI. They finish in the money a significant amount of time, winning their last start on the turf at the sprint distance. So he's a cool horse to root for, and he definitely has the form that would suggest you could pick him.
And props to the connections in getting this horse back to winning form after such a big layoff. I remember when he came back, you were pointing out that his last race before the layoff was with Rosie Napravnik in the saddle, so it really was a long time, and switched to the turf.
She's got 2 kids now.
Yes, exactly. So she's not riding anymore, of course, but this one has been in good form since the layoff, so I definitely think he's one to respect because does get Luis Saez in the saddle today. A horse that I think will probably take some money is the number 3, Our Independence. I kind of backed off on this one last time because in the short comments on paper, it looked like he has all kinds of trouble. Honestly, last time out, I didn't think he really had that much of a trouble trip. It was kind of a slight bump out of the gate, and I don't think it really affected him, though you definitely have to respect Lisa Lewis with turf sprinters.
Absolutely, and Lisa Lewis, she does a great job with her horses, and they always look great in the paddock too. But Our Independence, that was one thing I kind of noticed prior to his race last time out. I wasn't crazy about him in terms of a physical, and I agree with you. It was a little bit, it looks more of a trouble trip on paper than it does kind of rewatching the replay. So I took the wait and see approach. I do like the 7 duffel bag though, cutting back in distance, a distance where he did win and managed to get a 71 Beyer speed figure as a 3-year-old. So maybe if he can improve off of those numbers, he could be one. He'll be forwardly placed there in the second. We'll turn the page to the third here, going the 1-turn mile, 12,500 non-winners of 2 condition, and it looks like we both land on the same horse in the number 3, High Dandy, because we don't quite trust the 4 Catanova.
The 4 Catanova or the 5 Brothers Forever, both of them I think do promise to take some money in here, and I just had my reservations about both of them. So that's why I kind of mentioned when looking at this race, in my mind, High Dandy is on paper the one that should win this race, but I just didn't have confidence in singling in this kind of race as it is at 12,500 non-winners of 2. Now, High Dandy has been in okay form in his past couple of races. His last win did come at the mile distance. They tried cutting him back to sprinting. Ran the 7/8 last time with a solid third. He does get Jose Ortiz in the saddle, so he'll probably take a bit more attention come post time. But as I said, kind of by default, that's where I went.
I like him by default too, but I also love the fact that Jose Ortiz is aboard, and of course 2 starts back when he did go the mile, Eclipsado. I believe that horse was actually lone speed or something from the rail, so he was up against it from that perspective too. But I wanted to show a stat for the 4 Catanova for Mike Tomlinson, who does a great job. But with this, we always want to show negative stats for horses that would potentially be very short-priced favorites, and this is the case. He's going from turf to dirt with his claimers. 3 for 26, 12% negative ROI. They finish in the money quite frequently, but I do think that this is a pretty aggressive drop after a horse that, or for a horse that's been in pretty decent form against $30,000 claimers. I guess the other question is the 5 Brothers Forever. He just, I don't really trust his last race to begin with, because when he first started out, he wasn't running races like that whatsoever. So you have to question if that last race is legitimate, and will he be ready off of the layoff.
And he was an off track in that last race too, so you do kind of wonder where it came from, that 8-length victory. He hasn't run since December of 2015. I believe it was Wednesday. George Navarro had another horse like this in maiden claiming that was coming off of a more than a year layoff, and that horse didn't perform strongly. And looking up stats, 180 plus day layoff in maiden claiming, he's only 3 for 9, so he hasn't done it that often, and it is a negative ROI. So I took a little bit of the wait and see with this one too.
High Dandy it is for the 2 of us as we get to the 4th on the card. 6 furlongs on the main track for this allowance optional claimer, non-winners of 3, lifetime condition. And we also have another heavy favorite in the number 2, Hammer's Vision, 7 to 5 on the morning line. And I think we should start with this horse, just considering the morning line. And this horse did have success, but mostly facing 3-year-olds. Now he's facing older company as a 4-year-old, and we'll show a stat here for Brian Lynch with horses coming off a 61 to 180 day layoff sprinting on the dirt. This is kind of a very astounding stat. 1 for 22, 5% negative ROI of 30 cents and 36% in the money. So that was enough for me to maybe watch one for this horse.
I agree with you, and this horse is, of course, has some class coming out of Stakes Company at Laurel and Belmont before that, but it's also kind of like do they want him on turf? Do they want him on dirt? Is it sprinting? Is it going long? And it just looks like they still haven't really found the right spot for this horse. So that's why I wanted to watch one as well. I used him in third, used him in second. But a horse that I did have some interest in is, and I know it's a big ask to try to get the third win in a row, but that is the number 3, Izzy the Warrior. And we'll go back and show his last race for trainer Dale Romans. And I think that this horse, who was wide early in this race, the number 5 that day, came closing on the outside, looking for a kiss, was the second place finisher, and was really game that day. But you can see how wide Izzy the Warrior is. Now, he actually broke his maiden at first asking at maiden special weight company at Churchill. It stepped him up to A other than company last time here at Gulfstream, and he did get the win, which is what we're watching now. He did win just by a neck. So it is an interesting next move for him to be in here, but I do think off of those 2 races he's won that he is a must-use, I think, in those multis, too.
And he's a beautiful-looking horse, too. I remember seeing him in the paddock before his last race, thinking that he's big, sizable type of horse, maybe even distance, maybe even turf in his future. I don't know. It seemed like a horse that could have a lot of versatility, at least physically, and he looks like a very precocious one as well thus far. So one to use for sure, but the 5JS Bach was one that I wanted to kind of point out here for Todd Pletcher, and we'll show a stat going from turf to dirt with his optional claimers here at Gulfstream, which is exactly what this horse is in for. 38% out of 13 horses and still a positive ROI. So the horses generally run well, and I think people, as was I, was thinking that maybe his last race was a last-ditch effort, thinking that he's out of form on the dirt. Let's try and see if he'll wake up on the turf. He didn't, and now they're putting him in for the $35,000 tag after a subpar performance and really no other options. But he still has a tremendous amount of class on the main track, and some of his performances as of late haven't been that bad. So I like him that he's kind of true and tested, whereas Izzy the Warrior, yes, he's an up-and-comer, but he's also very lightly raced.
He is, and he's got his questions as well, and J.S. Bach does definitely have to take a step forward. I used him in second, and if you go kind of to the last time he did this, and where he was running at 6 furlongs, it was in 62,000 optional claiming company at Gulfstream Park West, and he did finish a solid third in that race, considering he was running behind a runaway winner in Mr. Baker. So I do think that he's definitely one to use, and you might get a little bit of a price on Todd Pletcher, which is never a bad thing because it doesn't happen that often.
Especially down here in South Florida. As we get to the 5th race to cap off the early pick 5, 7.5 furlongs on the turf, a maiden $35,000 race, and we've got a couple things going on, but we wanted to go back and show a spotlight replay of Front Row Debbie for Dale Romans.
And here's another Dale Romans horse, and we'll show the break of Front Row Debbie, who did take a little bit of a turn. The number 3 there bumped into the horse next to her. She just kind of looked a little bit unsettled early. She kind of shot out of the gate after that and then sat off the pace when she finally did settle a little bit. There's also Leroy's mommy in here, who's the number 4 today for Jane Sibeli, who did show some speed that day and showed a little bit of early interest. And I thought Front Row Debbie closed strongly with others closing to her outside too. You can see she's wide there, the number 3, as there's others closing to her outside. Again, horses to her inside, so she had to be wide. And I thought that she kept on pretty strongly in that race, and that's why I did give her the nod today.
And she could have been a little bit short. There's always that question because she was coming off a pretty significant layoff from October. But my problem with Front Row Debbie, and look, I use her in the exacta, but she is 5-2. She's been exposed against maiden $15,000 company. So although she ran well at 50, she still lost against lower level competition before. So that's why I think she might be a little untrustworthy. And I landed towards the inside to the 2. Yes, it's factual. This will be second time off the claim for Milt Wolfson, and just kind of ran out of her comfort zone in terms of class against maiden special weight company. And I think 9 furlongs was just a little too far. I still think that she might be better as a one-turn sprinter, but 7.5 furlongs is a heck of a lot better than 9 furlongs on the turf.
Absolutely, and that's kind of why I wanted to watch one from her. She's 0 for 11. She's kind of been racking up the losses, if you will, and she's run against Claiming Company before too, but she is now second off the claim for Milt Wolfson. Obviously stepped her up and stretched her out a bit too far for sure. So maybe this is just going to be a better spot for her.
Well, we certainly hope so. You also use the number 8 City section to the outside for Tom Bush, who she's running out of excuses.
She is definitely running out of excuses, but I did throw her on there. I don't know about the win today, as she is 0 for 14, but I thought her race was strong 2 starts back against this level of competition when she did step up to the 50,000 level last time. She finished behind Chiquita, who was one of 3 next out winners from that race.
Well, that is races 1 through 5. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the 20-cent Rainbow 6. We have a carryover in that, and we'll take a stab at the late pick 5 right after this.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet. We are racing.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Now taking a look at the 20-cent Rainbow 6. We have a carryover over $23,000 in the sequence today, and I did construct a ticket, and no, I don't have a single. We'll look at the sequence using 2 horses to start off the first 2 legs of the sequence, the 6 and the 9 with the 4 and the 6. As we get along, going to be going 3 by 3 by 3 by 3 for $64.80. We'll go through it leg by leg, but I really did think that it was difficult to find a single in the sequence. So we will proceed on with just the 6 and the 9 in here. And you land on the 5, Dunkirk's Boy.
I do. So we're kind of all over the place, but I'm in agreement with you, especially the later part of the sequence. It is hard to single in on something. And I had a tough time with this race, this 6th race here. So not an easy one to start off the Rainbow 6. Now, the number 9 Town Policy is definitely going to take money for George Navarro and Jose Ortiz second off the layoff. But I had some reservations about that one, so I tried to look for alternatives. Now, Victor Barbosa Jr. has 2 in here. I did end up using both of them in my top 3, landing on the 5 Dunkirk's Boy, who has some speed but also has some versatility. Now, last time out, I think, is a forgivable performance because Tyler Gaffleone was aboard that day, and he lost his whip. If you go back and watch that race, it literally just flew right out of his hand right when there was an opening, when Dunkirk's Boy had previously been covered up. So when there was room to go, he had no tool to help him urge the horse on, and that was stepping up in competition after back-to-back wins against 16,000 condition claimers. So I think last time was forgivable. He had some good momentum prior to that, so I'll give him another try today.
Okay, well, he's my 3rd pick, so I guess if I were to go 3 horses, I would have used him. But the 6 opening, I do think that, first and foremost, I think Town Policy is a horse to beat because he's coming out of good races. He's got speed to the outside. He can very well press. I think the scratch of the 8 Full Salute helps him in terms of class, not necessarily the big dynamic of the race because he didn't have a tremendous amount of speed. But Town Policy, you have to remember, did really all of the dirty work, dueling against Lex Vegas in that last race, setting it up for who you picked earlier in the card, Izzy the Warrior, to close from off of it. So Town Policy, I think, is a must-use, and that's where I have confidence in just going with 2 horses because I liked the 6 opening remark, and it's something that I'm not entirely sure about, but it looked like on the 18th of January, you did not want to be on the rail, and that's exactly where this horse was. He was glued pretty much the entirety of the race, and once he finally tipped out to the middle of the racetrack, he actually found a lot more momentum. So thought he could have run a better race or given the fact that he was on the worst part of the track that day, and plus this is second start off the layoff.
Definitely a lot to like, and he has a start on the conventional dirt here at Gulfstream under his belt after running on the synthetic and turf up at Woodbine. So definitely one to use. Now Town Policy again does have that speed, but second off the layoff and going for allowance to claiming for George Navarro. He's just 4 for 14 and negative ROI. So I just again kind of hit the pause button, but absolutely the horse to beat. I agree.
Well, that is race 6 to kick off the 20-cent Rainbow 6 as we take a look at the pick 5, a mile and a 16th on the turf for this maiden claiming event. Acacia, walk us through your ticket.
All right, well, I believe I kept it at $48 again. Yes, I did. Using 3 horses in here to start it off, and then I'll just go 2 deep in the 8th with Bowtie Affair and Padilla. 2 deep in the 9th as well. I'm going to spread in the 10th. I had a tough time with that race. Some interest in a couple of horses in there, and then just 2 deep in the finale, there was I think a key scratch of Sass Talk, who was my top pick. So using a couple horses in the last leg, hopefully we get there.
All right, well, best of luck using 3 horses here with the 1, 4, and the 6. I landed on the 4, so at least we agree on that. And the 6, Feel Proud. These are the only 2 horses that I did use. We'll show a replay for Feel Proud for Horacio de Paz, who I believe was entered and then scratched.
He was. I remember really liking him the other day, but keep your eyes on the number 10 here. He just hops out of the gate completely, and then he's very wide too. It takes him a long time to settle. We'll look at the head on as well. Just really rears out of the gate and then kind of drifts sideways as well. And the horses are kind of all strung out, so he really has no place to go. Tries to get him settled. Roberto Alvarado Jr. He ends up moving over, and I really like him on the drop back in class. He was entered in the other day. I had some interest in him. If you look at his race, 2 starts back against maiden $20,000 types. I thought it was a very good second that day. They tried stepping him up to the $50,000 last time. Of course, after the break, he was totally done. He had nothing to say of that race. So again, giving him another shot, Jose Lascano aboard.
He was second behind one of my favorite named horses, Fried Bologna.
It's a great one. It's a great one.
Well, with Feel Proud, you know, sometimes I've always kind of, when I first saw him, I liked him, and then he had put in a disappointing performance. Then I think it was the first weekend here, I picked him on the turf, and he did lose in that race. But I did like the fact that he at least had tactical speed. I like the fact that Jose Lascano is aboard him today. I don't like the fact that he's only made 3 starts as a 5-year-old. So clearly there have been hiccups before in the past. So the 4 Cape Force is where I did go here for Brian Lynch, and I just remember this horse being really hot and worked up in the paddock, and maybe that just had something to do with the lengthy layoff. There are a couple things going on, and generally speaking for Brian Lynch, horses do improve in their second start off the layoff. So that's where I went with him. There's nothing really to talk about his last race. It wasn't good, but he's dropping from there, and he's got a race under his belt.
And he definitely showed some promise first time out. Now, he, in all of his starts so far, has been coming from off the pace, so hopefully he will have something to run at today. I did have a little bit of interest in the number 1 Silver Wraith for Dale Romans, now switching back to the turf, which is where he had been running before the layoff, and I had kind of had some questions with him last time out, coming off of that 9-month break running on the dirt, but now he stretches back out and moves back over to the grass.
And Rory actually had a sneaky bad race last time out. If you go back and watch the replay, he was sandwiched out of position, immediately braking. That's kind of why he didn't show any speed if you're looking at it on paper. And then he really never, the rider, Jose Garcia, never really moved on him until it was a little bit too late. But he did make up a tremendous amount of ground, so maybe another one to use as well in the 7th. Again, that starts the pick 5. As we get to the 8th, it does start the final pick 4 of the day, that 50-cent base wager. We're going 7.5 furlongs on this turf for a restricted allowance optional claimer. And we'll just start first and foremost with the 1 Peace Points, because this horse is 4-1 on the morning line. I know a couple people picked this horse. I didn't. I threw him out completely. We'll show a stat here for Mike Trombetta. I'm going from routes to sprints on the turf. 6 for 61, 10%, a negative ROI. So yes, this horse was third against similar competition. Yes, he does draw a perfect post position given his running style. I just don't really like him in here.
I don't either. I used him 4th, but it was just kind of throwing him on at the end to complete the superfecta. I'm not really enamored with him at all. Now he could surprise both of us and win today. As you said, he does have a good rail post position for his running style, so perhaps he warrants a little bit of respect. I wanted to see him actually prove something today. So I did go to a horse that stretched out to 2 turns again last time, and that's Padilla, who has some back class too. Now, it has been a long time since his last win. He's kind of been an also-ran, if you will, but he's been finishing well against much tougher company than what he faces today. He was actually second in stakes competition. He tried the Sunshine Millions turf sprint back in 2015 before the layoff, and he came back, and he's been actually running okay. It looks like last time when he stretched out back to the 7.5 furlongs, we really saw some of that past spark come back in him.
And it's an outside post, unfortunately, but he's got enough speed, especially at 2 turns, to kind of shake out a trip or at least go from the outside. So I don't think that that's too much of a concern. I would imagine he might show a little bit more speed than what he showed last time out at 7.5. But the one bow tie affair was one who did get decently bet last time out. He stays at the same condition. He's still protected. Now Luis Saez in the saddle, who, you know, I love Luis Saez on these type of horses on the turf. So a couple of things to like, and also this is a horse who last time out he actually was shut off at the top of the stretch. He was down on the inside, kind of hugging the rail, and then Tyler Gaffleone, and rightly so, he kind of just let the horse mosey on home after that, just kind of protecting him. So sometimes that's what you have to do when that circumstance happens at the top of the stretch, but I expect a much better performance from him today.
He has every right to take a step forward today, and he does need to in order to compete. He's had a little bit of unlucky trips when running in New York, and unfortunately it was an unlucky trip last time as well, but I definitely think that he's one to use in here.
Okay, we look at the 9th race on the card, a $16,000 non-winners of 3 lifetime, 5 furlongs onto the turf, and scratch the 1-0 out, who figured to be part of the pace in here, but there's still plenty of pace left. And the 7, Kiss the Crown, I liked him because he's actually, or she, excuse me, she's pretty tactical. She doesn't necessarily need the lead, but she can win on the lead too.
That's what I liked about her too. She's got some versatility. She's also definitely flattered by the fact that she finished ahead of Indominus, who seemed to be one that was kind of stuck in second gear. She came back and won by open lengths on Wednesday, so I think that that flattered Kiss the Crown as well. And I thought it was a very nice win from her, coming from a little bit off the tracking the pace last time out. So that's why I did give her the nod today. Again, as you said, 0 out, definitely looked to have some speed from the rail, but there's plenty of other speed in here for her to run at, and especially looking like a Sail, now even one step closer to the rail, will be out running.
There is a lot of speed in here, and that's why I picked her, just thinking that she can maybe sit that pocket trip behind the pace. But we always say this, it's very hard to predict pace at 5 furlongs, especially when you think that there's abundance of speed and then one horse just goes out there and wires the field. One of them could be the 10 R Sweet Exchange. She might be used from the outside to get to the lead, but the blinkers come off, and is she faster than the rest to her inside? I just thought that this post position, giving her running style, is going to really hurt her.
That's why I kind of backed off of her too, with the fact, at least for the top spot anyway, but the fact that she does have that outside post. She'll have to be used very aggressively out of the gate to get out to the front, because it looks like she's much more effective on the lead. She finished a good second just by a neck, though it was beaten favorite last time at this level of competition. She's definitely, I think, a horse to use, but I think the post position is the biggest hurt to her today.
I really like one horse in here. I used her in the exact, and that's the 8 Sienna Slew. I know she's very lightly raced for a 6-year-old mare, only 11 career starts, but I love the cutback in distance, and she just might not be good enough, but I think one to use in the exotics or trifectas or exactas, because she cuts back to 5 furlongs. The last time she did this was in September here at Gulfstream, and she won, and it was not an easy victory as well. She had a couple of hurdles and obstacles to go to accomplish before she did get the win. So I like the cutback for her, although she has been in pretty awful form lately. But she does get enough pace to run into. So we get to the 10th race, the final daily double of today with this 11 race program, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf. And we go to the outside with number 9, Big Money Machine, was where you landed.
I did, and this horse is coming out of the same race as Transformative, the 8 and the 9 today, and we'll go back and show the last race that they both do come out of. This was on January 27th. Transformative is the 3 out front, and Big Money Machine is the 1 along the rail there. Now, I actually thought that Big Money Machine ran the better race, which is why I did end up putting him on top. And I have kind of been chasing this horse. Consistency is not a horse that I would use to describe Big Money Machine, but he's kind of bullying his way through. Transformative was out on the front showing some speed. He ended up kind of fading a bit, and I believe that we had both even picked him that day on the class drop. But I thought Big Money Machine, who was closing, he's done this before, that he really just comes flying at the end. I do think there's a little bit of pace for him to run at today. As I said, he's not consistent. I believe he's a horse that's always kind of saddled outside. He's not an easy keeper, but I do think he's got some talent.
Okay, Big Money Machine looking for that big run from off the pace. And you're right. I mean, it was a better race for Big Money Machine, but Transformative could improve on the slight cutback in distance to 7.5 furlongs today. But I disregarded kind of that race in general and landed on guess who? Armando de la Cerda. Shocker.
Not surprised.
Shocker with the top of the page. The dynamic duo here with Armando de la Cerda and Luis Saez. And I just think that this horse obviously has not been seen since April at Hawthorne, but if you go back to the fairgrounds races, this is another horse who should be closing it from off the pace, a similar running style to your horse, Big Money Machine. I just think he was running against better company at the fairgrounds. So if that form can transition here, Armando can get horses ready off of the layoff. So he was just a new face that I wanted in a race that plenty of horses have been running, losing, winning against each other, and I didn't want any of them, so I went to the 10.
And sometimes just having that new face in is all that you need, and he does have a little bit of questionable form, which actually might be good from a price point, because his last win was on the dirt. Now he's back to the turf, and I agree with you. I think that those fairgrounds races were strong, so he does have to come back off the layoff, but I used him as well. I used him 4th, but if you remember, this was my spread race using all 4.
That's a good idea, because even Parting Gift, I think, has to improve, but you and I both like this horse. I think we used your top 2 and my top 2 are both kind of back of the pack closing type. So maybe we should protect ourselves with a speed horse. And talking about the speed in here, that's why I think we kind of gravitated towards closers, because it looks like suspect speed in here. The one Weezagon Gray has speed. Je ne sais pas stretching out will show speed. So maybe a race that will have speed and then kind of fall apart for some of these closers. So a wide open race in the 10th as we get to the nightcap, 62.50 non-winners of 2 lifetime events, 7 furlongs onto the main track, scratch a 4, Sass Talk. And at the end of this card, when I was sitting down and handicapping this race, and I saw 14 horses for 6,250 claiming tag, I was kind of scratching my head. I wanted to try to go with a little bit of price. I found one at 12-1, but this is the race that's very difficult, and it's kind of a fun race to, at least if you're a part of the contest today, and beat the expert, because if Bonnie Boy Hunter wins, I'm going to be very proud of myself at the end of the day.
As you should. I actually scratched into Bonnie Boy Hunter. I had him in 2nd originally. As I mentioned earlier, I had Sass Talk on top on the class drop, which was also a little bit questionable too. But I actually thought that Bonnie Boy Hunter ran a good race last time out. If you go back and watch that, this horse had to be so wide. Luca Panici stays aboard now, 2nd off the layoff as well, had dropped in class off the layoff. And it's just tough because it's 7 furlongs with 14 horses at the end of the day. It's just it could be a free-for-all for all you know. So I like Bonnie Boy Hunter too off of his last race.
I think this race, kind of traditional handicapping standards just kind of have to go out the window, and you have to hope for the best. Hope that your horse likes the distance, likes the surface, and works out a trip. And I just think Bonnie Boy Hunter does have kind of that tactical speed. But I also use the 11 Thunder of Fleet, who last time at 7 furlongs I thought ran okay, and he's always a consistent sort. He doesn't necessarily always find the winner circle, but if you look at his past I'd say 5 races or so, he's been just right there. So I did like him a bit. And you go to a horse just to his outside with a 12 Dero D. who's a horse that could have a little bit of, we could see him be forwardly placed here?
I would imagine he probably will be forwardly placed. Now, he's definitely not a horse that I trust on top, as he was 30 cents to the dollar last time out, and given that it wasn't the strongest field and he couldn't get the win, he actually finished behind Bonnie Boy Hunter in there. But the way that he's been beaten as the favorite several times, again, not a horse that I trust, but one that I did end up putting on, as well as the 14 Starship Explorer all the way to the outside. So talk about an outside post trying to work out a trip today.
Well, I am all out of ideas here for today's finale, and I think I'm all out of voice right now as well. So we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back for those 11 races on today's card. But first, Pete Aiello will be up next with those scratches and changes. Best of luck.
We have to take care of these horses that, give us so much joy.
Being accredited